Over how I made a book lover's pendant for the Necedah Library silent auction. Here we're starting with the head pin. We're going to create our loop and then secure it by wrapping it around the base wire. Make sure that's nice and tight. And then we're going to curve up the base wire, and this is just so that it doesn't pull out of the clay once it's all put together. And I will go ahead and apologize for the lighting. This was filmed over the course of a few days, so it does look different here and at the end of the video. I'm going in with translucent and beige clay, doing this so that once it's baked, it'll be just a little bit lighter and it won't be so tan at the end. Here we're going to shape and flatten it up, rubbing out any fingerprints and tightening up the corners while we're at it. This will also help remove any fingerprints that might have gone on there while we were shaping it up. Make sure it's the same width all the way around and placing the head pin on there. We're going to go ahead and start creating the cover with this blue color. But before we do that, I'm going to cut the pages into the book. We only need to do 3 sides because the one side will be covered up by the binding of the cover. Now we're going to go ahead and roll out our cover, making sure that it's the same width all the way across. And we're going to cut an edge flush so that we can line up the inside of the book, just to make sure that we cut the cover to the right length. Flipping to each side to make sure it doesn't overlap too much, and just trimming up any excess. And we're going to go ahead and fold that over and press it down just a little bit so that it holds. Pressing down the binding and smoothing out any sharp edges. I went ahead and I carved the word books into the back of this one. And I was going to stop here, but then my partner made a comment of a book being called books didn't really make sense. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we carve nice and deep into this so that it shows up once we're finished. You can just smooth out any of those mistakes. And then we're finished with the first one. We're going to go ahead and start on the second one here. Again with the translucent and beige clay. And flattening and shaping that up. Making sure it's the same width all the way around. Tightening up those corners. And I chose a nice rosy pink for this cover just to give it a little bit of contrast against the blue. We're going to go ahead and roll this out, and then we'll repeat what we did with the blue book by just making sure that it's the same shape and width all the way around as the pages will be. This card is a little bit thicker, so when I cut, it did leave some excess clay on the edge. So when you see me pressing up against the edge of it, that's just my way of making sure that there's no extra clay sticking off the edge and it's all part of the main piece. And I did not lift this cover up before I started to shape it, so it is stuck to the table just a little bit here, but we're going to loosen that up and cover it. And then just kind of smoothing out any of the edges. We're going to go ahead and cut the pages into this one as well. Once this is finished baking, I'm going to go in with what's called a patina effect, and it's basically just taking a dark brown paint, either acrylic or oil, rubbing it into all of the little cracks, crevices, and cut areas, and then wiping it off with a towel so that it gives it a little bit more of a natural look. We're carving a heart into this one, measuring it up. And then we're going to be using a little bit of a liquid clay. This is basically just a clay adhesive that once baked becomes just like the clay itself. For our third book here, just repeating the same steps, straightening, flattening it out, and then tucking in the corners. And we went in with a purple cover for this one. Making sure it's nice and flat, and then rolling it out just to make sure it's even. And repeating the same steps again of shaping up the cover. Flattening out any tough edges, and then cutting in the pages. And then we're going to adhere that with the liquid clay again.